Hey guys, welcome back to JR14. Here I am with another video for you guys today. We're installing another part on Project Mark 7. This time we're actually going to be switching out something and we're going to be replacing it with the P3 multi-gauge for the Mark 7. And it also includes the track apps. So without further ado, let's jump into this install. Let's go. Before we go ahead and install the gauge in the car, what I want to do is I want to be able to unbox everything with you guys. So let's see what we got included. The first thing that you have, before you even take anything out the box, stop. P3 has an install guide for every single one of their models, that the cars that they make the gauge for, and I believe it's around 65 different models. So definitely read this. Also read the diagram of how everything's supposed to connect up. But I'm actually going to be showing you this today, how to install it on your car if you're interested in this gauge. So the first thing that we do have, first thing I want to actually show you guys is the gauge, because it's very important how they do this type of stuff. So the thing about the gauge is that if you can order this just with the actual gauge itself, and you can use your existing vent pod with it. So you would actually take off the two, like, see these little fins here? You would actually have to take this apart and take off the two first fins, and these actually snap in place, if you guys can see that on each side here. But you can actually, to save yourself the time, you can actually go ahead and just order it with a replacement vent, so you can actually just swap them out, and just all you got to do is swap the trims out and connect everything, which makes it a little bit more easier for you to use. So that's the first thing. The next thing that we do have here is the track pack. So you can get this gauge to just do basic functions such as your boost levels and stuff like that, your PSI. But this actually unlocks a lot of other things: 0 to 60 time, ignition timing, boost, battery voltage, and other things of that nature. So this kind of unlocks everything to utilize the gauge for something else. So utilize the gauge for much more advanced features. You do have the track pack, like I said before. It includes all those features. It's pretty much like a box that enhances the multi-gauge to do more things than just read you boost levels and basic information. So this is definitely pretty handy, especially those 0 to 60 times, because I am curious with that Litco L450 how fast we can get the Mark 7 to 60 miles an hour. Hopefully in the fours. The next thing that we have is the wiring kit. So pretty much it's very basic in regards to the plug and play. So pretty much, like I said, this is an OBD2 port. So this multi-gauge runs like the other boost gauge that I currently have in my car through the OBD2 port. You do have your connector here that plugs into the track app box to enable this to enhance more features. You do have your analog wires here. So these are two analogs. This is for your boost sensor. I'll talk more about that in a minute. And the green wire is for the auto dimming feature. So when you turn on the cabin lights, it actually could dim with the dashboards and everything inside. So that green wire you can actually splice into the connector and be able to utilize that as well. So that's the wiring harness. And the last thing, a very important thing that what we're going to be talking about. So this gauge only reads up to about 22 psi. That may be fine for most people, but I am running a bigger turbo and I am running bigger boost levels in the car. So this is actually a boost tap. Now this is actually pretty different from all the other boost taps that you see, you know, from other companies. I'm not going to name those other companies because I don't do that. But what this is here, it gives you basic instructions on everything here in regards of how to install it. It actually utilizes your manifold, your intake manifold sensor. So pretty much you take the sensor out and it gives you all the other hardware here for the longer bolt, and it does have the, it does have the O-rings and everything here, and actually the boost tap to, you know, to screw into this, and then you run the hose down. The only difficult part the only difficult part that I'm willing to experience right now is pretty much how to run this wire from the engine bay, from where the intake manifold is, all the way into inside the car. So we're going to be doing that right now with this install. And then also you do have the connector. So like I showed you before on this wiring harness, this actually connects into this like so. And then you have the actual hose that will connect into this, and the other end will connect into the nipple that goes into this, and this is the adapter. So the cool thing about that boost tap is the fact that the matter of fact is that all the other boost taps require that you drill into the plastic manifold. I don't want to do that. You know, sometimes those tend to leak. It won't necessarily happen to your car, but it's known for happening over time. Plastic gets brittle, it gets loose, it makes the fittings get loose and stuff like that. So this actually just puts an adapter between the sensor and the adapter and the intake manifold, and you're pretty much you're able just to pretty much do the same things with this boost tap rather than drilling into anything. Guys, I don't know about you, but I'm ready to take this whole gauge out and put this new P3 gauge inside the car. So without further ado, let me take everything out of the car and I'll tell you exactly how to take off what we need to take off. So without further ado, let's take this trim tool. Let's go ahead and start taking apart Project Mark 7. Let's go. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is just take this panel off here. This is gonna be pretty easy to take off. So we're gonna go ahead, pop that open. Once you get one open, just start popping the clips like that. Be careful not to twist this sideways, because that's how you can easily break the clips. There we go. Perfect. Got that out. So now, as you can see here, I pretty much have all the existing wires from this gauge that I'm about to take out of the car. Let me just move the seat back so I have enough space. And then we're gonna start disassembling the stuff on the top. So this stuff you don't need to follow with the instructions. I'm gonna go ahead and take out everything that you see here from the old gauge. And then after we do that, then I'll show you everything that we need to install in for the new gauge. So without further ado, let me take all this stuff out first. All right, guys? Okay, guys, so we're back. I didn't finish taking out the wire out for the old gauge, but what I want to do first is show you how to actually take this vent out. There's a couple of ways you can do this, but I actually will show you the simplest way of how to do this. To take this light switch out here. So the way you do that is you push this in. Oops. When you do that, pull the whole gauge out. There you go. Like you see there. Then there's a tab on the back of this that you remove. Or you can just pull it out, I think. No, you gotta pull on this tab and then pull it out. So that's your light switch right there. Then what you can do, there's a T20 in here that you can screw out, like I'm about to do right now. So there we go. Got that out. We'll put that on the dashboard. Then we can pull out the actual light switch gauge, the pod for it. So go ahead and pull this out. And then there's another connector in the back of here. You just pull down on this tab right here, and that comes out. Now you have this out. Now the cool thing is that up here is your vent. So the cool thing is you could do now is that you could just push it forward, which will be easier for you. With a pry tool, you can actually then push the whole vent forward, which I'm trying to do, and it's not wanting to agree with me right now. Clips, they're tension clips. Once you break those free, this should pop right out. So let me get to that, and then I'll come back to you guys when I get it out.
A few moments later.
Wanting to get the trim free first, that's fine. We're gonna be swapping out the trim anyway. And it's actually a little easier. So now, none of the tabs are broken or anything like that on the back here, so we're good to go with that. I'm gonna leave that to the side. Now, I see the two clips right here. So let me move that to the side. The two clips for this vent are right up here. All you have to do is just pry on one. I got one out already. Now the problem with this is that sometimes the gauge doesn't want to come out, even though if you got some of the clips out, because one likes to pop back in like it just did. Oh no, it didn't. Okay, maybe I can look heroic and do this in one shot. Just forward. There we go. So there we go. The vent is out of the car. So here's the old vent. Pretty dirty in there a little bit. So look at me talking with a Jamaican accent. Now we're gonna pull this out, and then now I can finish taking everything out before we install everything that's brand new with the gauge pod. So without further ado, guys, let me go ahead and do this, and I'll come back to you guys. So now what we're gonna do is assemble everything in here. So the first thing that we want to do is actually put the gauge in first. So that's really what I want to try to get done first. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right. So a tip for you guys, if you guys just buy the gauge for itself and you actually take out these two fins up here and you're actually doing this gauge yourself, the way you want to run this wire, since I already have a pre-installed gauge that came with the kit, came with my kit anyway, you want to run this wire, because the wire's on this side, run it on this side and then fold it and bring it back. Once you bring it back, it's going to go through this hole right here. So the only thing that I have to do now is transfer, as you guys can see here, transfer the trim to the new gauge. So do that first. Make sure everything clicks. Don't try to put this vent in by itself. I did that mistake when I did the Aeroforce gauge. It was a pain to get it back out. just make sure that it has to go back in with the trim. It's just makes your day a lot easier. So pretty much this is how your gauge pod's supposed to look with the trim. Everything's still functional and everything like that. So you're good to go. You still have some functionality of your vent up and down. You still have your vent side to side. When you're putting this together, you actually have to take this front grill off and then take these two apart. Just make sure that when you put it all back together that you tie it with that center piece in there, because that kind of controls the movement of everything within inside the gauge as you see it back and forth here to make the air flow properly. So all we have to do now is just properly push this back in down here through this space, because we're gonna need a lot of that. So just make sure this is nice and flat, make sure it's not kinking on anything. All right, like so, and then just push this back. Once you push it back, everything should fall into place like so. Make sure everything is snapped in place, nice and smooth. Everything is nice and even. Your gauge pod is in. So that's pretty much it. So only thing you got to do now is figure out how to install all the other parts. So wiring harness. So this pretty much will tie everything together. I should have had zip ties, but I don't have any zip ties. But is that there's no way to run this OBD2 port up here, and that's kind of what I want to get first. So what I want to do is I'm going to take out some extra screws. They're all T20s, by the way, so you don't have to worry about finding it. It's a Torx bit, so I already have that on my screwdriver right here. We're going to remove 3 of them. So you have to remove this door right here. I took it out already, but you push the sides in, then you pull it down, and then you just pop, and it pops right out. So there should be 3 of them here. One should be up here, which I see right up here. So I'm going to move the camera back. I'm going to get these removed. There's one over here, which I'm actually going to remove right now. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get this bottom loose. And there's one, I believe there's one. I'm trying to find it. Where are you? Oh, there's one here. And then there's one here. And then this whole bottom part should be loose. But it should be just enough to get this bottom trim kind of loose in there so I can get this wire through. That screw out. So now I'm able to, ooh, not too much. You don't need to pull this down. You just need enough to do that. To do that right there. So I'm going to go ahead and route everything up through this. First is I'm just going to plug up everything before I make everything nice and neat, just to ensure that everything is perfect in regards to the install. Right. So I have everything plugged up. I have everything plugged up here. Before I put everything nice and neat and make everything all nice and neat, I want to go ahead and turn on the car and see if everything works. So put the clutch in. There we go. Okay, cool. So now we know that everything works, so we're going to go ahead and show off the car. Okay, and we're going to go ahead. I'm going to put you guys back on the tripod. Then we're going to clean everything up as far as all these wires and stuff like that. So really quickly, this install is not going to be done yet because we do have this. I do want to run a boost tap. So the boost only runs up to 22 PSI through the OBD2 port. I don't know why, but it only does up to 22. I know that I'm going to be making more boost in that, so we're going to be running a boost tap from the engine bay to this. I'm going to show you that as well, and we're going to connect it to this, which will connect and read into this track pack. The auto dimming feature, which is this, I'm going to leave this alone. I like the brightness of this, but you can manually adjust it if need be. These two are for 2 external outputs. So there's brown and blue wires. So if you have 2 analog inputs that you want to put in here to read stuff off of this, you can. I'm not running any of those either. So yeah, so the only thing that we have to do is just pretty much take this apart, dress it up, make it look nice, and then put everything back together again. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get that done. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is this track box, so then we can figure out where everything else goes. So we're going to pull that out. We're going to pull this, take this completely apart, since we know that everything works beautifully. And then I can run the wires for down here and then tuck everything away nice and neat, put the cap back on it, put everything back together, and we'll be done. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut off a piece of 3M double-sided tape like so. Perfect. All right, now peel the back of this off. Now we don't need that anymore. We're gonna stick it right here. That's easy to get to the bottom wires and the top wires with no problems. Since this one goes to the top and these are running from the bottom, it's just wise to have it this way, so it's no brick problem. The side, inside here, which still works. I mean, it doesn't matter if you do this or not. The next thing I want to do is run this up now. So we can run this out here. Okay. None of these other wires we're going to be running, except this one that we're going to be working on in a second. That's fine. Move this out of the way for a second. Let's get all this plugged up. Ooh, beautiful. Wonderful. If you were ending this install, this is where you would end. But actually what we're going to be doing now is a little bit more intense. We're actually going to be moving to the engine bay. So before I put everything back together here, I kind of need to run that boost wire, the boost cable, the boost hose from that intake manifold to inside here. So we're going to go ahead and do that first before we dress this up nice and neat, and then we'll be underway. So let's go ahead and get her done. All right, so here's the fun part. So we need to deal with this guy right here. So this is the thing that we actually need to remove. This is the, actually let me take this off real quick. This is the culprit of what we're working with right here. So this is your actual sensor for your intake manifold, and this is what we're going to be using for the boost tap. Most of the time people boost tap into this right here. They actually have to poke into it. Sometimes they do it from here. Sometimes they do it from anywhere on the thing here. But most of the time they do it from this one right down here, if you could see my hand. Right there. But we're actually going to run an adapter on top of this, and it's actually very easy. So we're going to do everything to do this install as easy and as proficient as possible so that you guys are comfortable to do it at home. Shout out to me, the guinea pig. I'm just playing. I spoke to P3 in regards of this. They said it's a very easy install. You don't have to run it, but the only thing is that you kind of do want to run it because of the fact that, you know, you don't have to deal with not knowing what your boost pressure is. Pull the sensor off. I think it's a T20. Am I right? I am right. So it is a T20. I'm going to go ahead and remove that. Be careful not to damage this. This is a pretty pricey part, I think. I've heard before that it's pretty expensive. You just pull up. Oh, so it's clipped in. So you have to spread the clips out like that and then pull up. Well, I guess you want to get an actual reading, right? Oh, there you go. And that's it. That's all it is. So now I'm going to go ahead and get the, try not to touch that at all. So like I said, this fits into here. I'm going to do that, put that in there, and then the boost tap's going to run behind it. So we got all the little bitty parts here. This is very important. Please be careful with this, because if you lose these parts, you're pretty much assed out into here. So if you see this, we'll screw this nipple into here. So we're going to go ahead, just screw that in. Make sure it's nice and firm and tight, which it is. All right, next thing we're going to do, the next part is the O-rings. There are, I believe, 2 of them. So as you can see here, see this little ridge right here? One of the O-rings goes here. Boom, that easy, right? The other O-ring goes onto this right here. If you want to replace it, you can go ahead. I'm not going to. I'm going to leave the original one on. So that's pretty much it. So all you have to do now is push this in its place. Well, actually, so that's how it pretty much is going to look. It's going to sit like that. And you push this whole unit in. Now, since you extended the sensor away from it, they give you a longer bolt so that it reaches the bottom to tie into place. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to snap this in place first. Here we go. Actually, it should sit in like that. I just snapped it in further, so it should definitely sit like that. If you wanted to pull it apart later, you just wiggle it back and forth till you get it out, but I'm going to leave it in there, obviously. Hang on, let me put this screw down so I don't lose it. You just push like that, and now it's on. All right. Nice and tight. As you can see, the sensors down there, so we're gonna go ahead and do now. They supply you a longer bolt. That's an Allen head. So we'll go ahead and pop down everything in place without the screw first, so we don't lose it. Here we go. Perfect. All right. So we got that in there. And then what we're going to do after that is screw it down. So as you can see, we ran the boost tap. We put the longer screw in it. It's not going anywhere. The boost tap runs towards the back. You have an adapter that has a boost tap already installed. You're going to connect this back, but we're not going to connect this back right away. We're actually going to take the intake box off. We're going to take that battery out, and then we're going to try to figure out, hopefully it's easier than expected, but we have to run the boost wire, I keep saying wire, the boost hose, the boost tap hose from there to inside the car. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so as you can see, I took out the intake box, I took out the battery, I took out the battery holder and slid the battery forward and took the whole battery out. Now, so technically this boost hose is supposed to come somewhere here. I'm gonna connect it here first and then like try to like fish it up here through here. Well, actually that's not a good place to put it. I'll try to figure out something in regards of where I can put this without it not damaging anything. But I kind of want to run it in an area where it's not going to move around too much and I can easily access it to take it out if I need to for any reason. I think I'm actually just going to run it underneath the battery cable here so it stays put. And then possibly, is this loose? Yeah, like this doesn't put that much tension on the boost line. So probably I'll run it like there, and then against the side here and run it down. But the only issue is that I'm gonna do my best to explain this after the install, but this is kind of the extensive part where there's one little grommet right next to the clutch pedal on the inside. So what I'm trying to do, what you have to do is you have to cut a hole in it, just a small little slit, which I did already, and then I gotta fish this coat hanger through. Once I see it on this side here, I'm able to grab it from the engine bay, and then I'm able to tape the line to it and pull it back down. Once I pull it back down, it should come through the grommet with no problem, and then I'm able to go ahead and connect it to the sensor that's inside the car. I'm able to put the battery back, and then the install will be complete. I can clean up my work. So hopefully this works as easy as they say that it's going to be. I'm sure it's not too bad. I'm just worried about where in the world is this coat hanger going to come up on the engine bay here. So without further ado, I got my flashlight. I got this. I'm going to snake it in there and see where it comes out. Okay, so guys, what do you see there? A coat hanger. So that's perfect. We're good to go. We got it through. It ends up coming up right on the side here, up. So just keep, when you're pushing the grommet in, when you're pushing it through the grommet, try to go down and up, and it'll come up through this way. So that's perfect. So now I'm going to run the hose through. My battery's about to die, so I'm going to go ahead and switch batteries, and then I'm going to show you the completed product with this wiring, and I'm going to connect everything back. Hopefully nothing gets snagged on the way back down. That's what I'm a little concerned about, but hopefully we should be all right. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get her done. And I'm gonna do my best to show you guys. I'm gonna do my absolute best to show you guys the hole that I used. All right, so the boost hose, I can't zoom in with this camera, so bear with me, but you see what that bolt is? The foam next to it, behind that is the grommet. I used one of these. You can use like a little small razor blade, like an X-Acto knife, and use that to pry it open, just puncture it lightly. Then I used the coat hanger, push it through. Then I used electrical tape when I got it through to tie this back. It's gonna get stuck on the edge because obviously the hole is smaller than this, so you're actually widening the hole a bit. And then once you run it through, I put that little plastic piece back in its place, so we're good to go on that. Because you can see everything is already good to go. So now the last thing we need to do is run this to the sensor, which is, remember I told you this piece right here? This is the last piece of the puzzle. You're gonna put your hose on this end, and you're gonna connect it to this, which actually goes right into the box to read off PSI. Now, just to explain to you why I did that really quickly is because of the fact that if you just do the electrical connections, that's fine. But this gauge can only read up to 22 PSI with no issues. Okay, I know it looks like a mess, but literally everything is done. I have to go back and get my vent from inside the house, from the one that went up here with my old gauge utilized. But so just gonna clean everything up nice and neat. Everything's nice and neat. This is double-sided taped to the metal bracket behind here. This is actually zip tied away. That won't hit anything, and that will actually sit flush against the pad once I get that on. Only thing I got to do now is put all these T20s back in here, back where I took them out. Put this back in here, put the T20 back in this the light pod, or the light switch pod, and then put everything back together, connect everything back. This is all good to go, and we'll be done. So the next time you're gonna see this, everything's gonna be completed. We're gonna be inside the car. I'm gonna try to configure this thing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get all this cleaned up. All right, got everything buttoned up. Everything's back together. Can't see anything wrong, can't see anything kinked, so hopefully when I start this car, everything will work well. So without further ado, let's give her a whirl, shall we? There we go. And once I start rolling, that'll go away. Alright, so that works. Okay, so now we're gonna have, that's boost, we already talked about. Coolant temperature, 120. Air, that's your air temperature. Ignition timing. Exhaust gas temperature. Throttle. RPM shift. Guess you could configure a shift light for this. Speed, I'm not going anywhere, so it's at 0. 0 to 60. It's gonna let me know when it's ready. Battery voltage, 14 volts, 13.9. Air fuel ratio, and back to boost. And the last thing that we got to do here, it's only right, and ooh, yes. That looks so amazing, and it's flush and smooth and beautiful, and I got accurate boost because I ran the boost line. Looks like everything's working well. Don't worry about these check engine lights. As soon as I start rolling the car, those lights will go away. And yeah. Okay guys, well that's going to conclude this video, the full installation of the P3 gauge, multi-gauge with the track pack as well as the boost tap for the Project Mark 7. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up and make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to JR14. And guys, remember, cars are a lifestyle.